Hey, what is up, guys? It's Guiltspire here, and welcome back to Champions of the Fog. I am joined here today with my friend Psycho Mantis. How's it going, Psycho?
Very good. Very excited to see this game. We got How Did We Get Here? Team I know very well. Going up against Despair. Two really interesting teams. One, I believe, is your community, right, Gil?
Yeah,
On
this
How Did We Get
is,
Here?
for lack of a better term, kind of a one of my community teams that kind of obviously heard all about Chamber of the Fog in its early creation, and over time they're like, hey, let's give it a shot. We don't think we're all too great, but might as well throw our hat in the ring and have some fun. So I'm very happy to see them here. Very interested to see how well they do and how much they have progressed. They've been doing some scrims over the last week, I've heard. So very, very excited. But beyond that, very excited to have you here as well. It's been a hot minute since we've last talked. For those who don't know and who did not see our journey early in Vigo's court, I actually was a team member of Four Dwights One Locker alongside Psycho, and learned a lot of DBD comp together in that time. So very excited to have you here as a co-host today.
Thanks to the powers of Reddit, Guildspire was discovered into competitive Dead by Daylight aside from pubs. That's where it all began.
Yep, for those who do not know the origin story, literally I'm scrolling through Dead by Daylight. I think it was the Dead by Daylight killer subreddit. And I just saw randomly looking for a Dead by Daylight killer for competitive league. I'm like, why not? So I mentioned Psycho, and sure enough, Psycho freaking decides to put me up against a loop artist who was formerly known as Bubba's Bullies as my initial entry into DBD comp as a test to see whether or not I'd make the cut for the team. Yeah, that was quite a surprise once I learned that after the fact.
We were all new to competitive settings, and you always start somewhere. You can't. No one just starts off on a competitive level with Dead by Daylight. It takes a lot of time, practice, and just repetition really to get there.
No, 110%. And also, it does look like we are trying to get everyone into the lobby here. Shelby, if you could do me a favor and just ping Despair and see if they are able to get in touch with Rag, be much appreciated. As a quick little spoiler, as you guys haven't seen just yet, we have How Did We Get Here? Killing first with Ragnarok Alex as the killer. Very excited to see Rag playing killer. I don't think I've ever actually seen Rag playing killer. Though maybe Psycho, you could shed some light on that.
I have seen Rag play killer a few times. He actually does it quite a good amount. At least I've seen him do it in the pubs side. I've never really seen him try it too much in competitive. I haven't played with Rag very much over the last few months, so that might have changed. I don't know if I should be giving away his killer pool or not. Maybe I'll be surprised. I know Rag probably knows one of. I mean, Gil probably knows Rag's main killer that I'm aware of.
Yes, I'm interested to see if that is in play today,
Mm-hmm.
and very interested to see if Rag has improved since I last saw this killer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very intrigued to say the least, and very excited to both see how both Rag plays as killer, but also how members of my community play as survivor. Honestly, they watch me, so hopefully some of my tips and tricks as an educational killer main have landed, and they're able to implement that here in some Dead by Daylight comp. Though, as you and I both know, competitive league is a whole nother beast from pubs. It is a whole different story, to say the
Oh
least.
yeah, there's so many things you could do in pubs that will get you nowhere in what do you call it competitive environment really at all. Lots of builds are just almost flat out unplayable, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more, and I mean, at the end of the day, that is why I have as tight of restrictions as I do, that only one perk can be allowed, except with BT, which can be used twice, just because that way, ideally, we do see some, perks being used that you might not normally see in comp. If, in instance, you have free reign, you don't want to see the normal Dead Hard DS BT Unbreakable and all for Survivor. I think that'd be just a wee bit unfair, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I like how we have the rules set here. It makes for a lot of variety, but not variety just for the sake of variety. Like you're not banned from playing any killers at all. Everyone's available to you, but you have to keep in mind that you have to play. I think it's going to be how many games are going to play? 6 games each has 12 killers. So you have to cycle through 12 different killers in the game, and to be honest, in a competitive level, I don't think there's 12. But like if you go up against like the best of the best, I don't think there's 12 that are going to do it for you. But there's a few that, if in the right hands, will get the value. You know, like you have your huntresses, your death slingers, like those niche killers that maybe in most against competitive teams wouldn't maybe do so well, but in the right hands could do a lot. And those are the kinds of killer mains you want to have on your team.
No, exactly. There's what I refer to as the top 8 that, everyone is going to use at some point. It then really determines those bottom 4, where are you going to choose, a Demogorgon? Are you going to choose a, Deathslinger? Like, who is going to be those bottom 4, and who do you play those against is the next question as well. But it does look like we're about to jump into our match. As soon as we do load in, we'll switch on over and jump right on in and see who Rag might be playing. I am quite excited and hope that all of you join us today are as well. And just want to confirm, I think the first map today is it Torment Creek or is it Wrecker's Yard?
I'm not quite sure. I have to check where that's listed.
Guess it'll be a wee bit of a surprise. At least for us. It's on the schedule for those who are interested. Alright. Well, let's switch on over. And let us see. Now, as a heads up, I did mention that last week, ideally, we're going to have our scorecard for this week. My graphic designer has not gotten back to me, unfortunately. So we will hopefully have that for next time. But for now, I will have my ref posting the scores as soon as possible at the end of each trial in Twitch chat. So do keep an eye out for that to make sure that you are attentive at the very least. But with that being said, we should be joining this match in just a few moments. So overall, I actually haven't ever seen Despair play. Do you have any experience against Despair at all?
No, actually, but I've heard of the name. I've seen the name around. I don't think they're that new of a team. At least some of the players to the competitive team.
Wait, excuse me? What am I seeing right now? Looks like we got a DC here.
Wrong map, I believe.
Was that wrong map? Okay, well that is a wrong map there. So let me just check the rules real quick on what that will mean, because I do believe due to a reset, I think that will count against how did we get here. So let's jump back into lobby real quick. Let me just confirm the rules before we move forward.
So that would mean that Rag, or the killer main for Despair, how did we get here in this case, would be stuck running the same thing, and then the Survivor team has the option to change anything, correct?
So, realistically speaking, the rules right now, you can change at any point. But I want to just check the DC rules because that I will just consider a DC as a reset. So, in instance that a banned perk, item, add-on, etc. is bought into the trial, the game will be reset if noticed within 2 minutes of the game. Otherwise, the game will reset at the request of the defending team's captain at the end of the match. Obviously, each realm will be determined 1 week in advance and will be chosen at random. So, in this case, what I am going to say, though it does not say in the rules, that this is going to be considered a disconnect, and thus will be reset. Each team may only reset 3 times during the regular season due to a disconnect. So, in that case, that is going to count as one of How Did We Get Here's 3 resets. So, if an instance that they do have technical issues in the future, they will only have 2 more available at this moment in time. But yes, you can change builds.
Okay, and that's for both sides, right?
Yep, that is for both sides. It is unfortunate as that is our first map mix-up. I'll have to think of maybe adding an additional rule. Honestly, we don't want a situation to where the killer just kind of accidentally or purposely switches the map last moment. So might have to think of maybe a potential penalty. I personally am not a fan of point penalties. I'm more of a fan of resets because I think it does make a fairer playing field. But with that being said, Very happy to at least have some rules in place. So I'll have to give that some thought. Maybe you guys over in chat can provide me some feedback over on the Discord of if, an instance, there is a wrong map chosen. Obviously, I do want each side to be able to change their perks and even killer if possible. But should there be an additional amend to the rules stating that something were to be the case, maybe the killer can't change their build if that were to happen. So, food for thought, and I'll let you guys provide me some feedback as I'm always open to it. But ideally, we are on the right map this time round. And Shelby, could you just confirm me real quick what the first map is based on the schedule?
It is Wrecker's Yard is first, and then Torment Creek is the second set.
Thank you, thank you. I do appreciate it.
Really interested to see if Rag is actually bringing the killer we saw there, because that was a little spicy, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I saw what looked to be Mad Grit, Starstruck, Agitation, kind of interesting to say the least. So if he does stick with that, I'm very curious to see how well that works. I mean, Starstruck is a very, very strong perk, and something that people just do not really think of all too much, do we?
No, not quite. If you're honest, it looks very much like a build that I would donate channel points to your stream to get you to
play. You are not wrong in the slightest. But with that being said, we are on Wrecker's Yard, and we do see the same build from Rag, so this looks to be what they're bringing. Brutal Strength, Mad Grit, Agitation, Starstruck, Trapper, with Trapper Bag and Trap Setters. Very interesting choice indeed. I mean, if you're going to use a killer, might as well see about using Trapper, and we do see scratch marks here out the start. So this is going to be very much based on whether or not Rag can get a initial down here and try and activate Starstruck. Let's take a quick peek at the survivors. Looks like they're working on this gen over here. Looks like probably 2, maybe 3 gens. Yeah, 3 gens currently being worked on. But we do see the first chase for Rag here against Nia over in this tile. Rag kind of losing there, taking that tile a little bit wide. So, out of curiosity, Psycho, was this what you were expecting from Rag this first match?
No, I do know he does play a trap a little bit, but this is not what I know him for, at least on killer. Oh, good, pretty early hit here. So one of the things about Trapper is you got to get your web set early. And without Corrupt, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I was about to say, definitely, Trapper, I usually see Corrupt as kind of an auto-include on almost every single build, for if you do not have it, you're just kind of bleeding pressure very early on as you try and set up. Of course, alternatively, you can always do a chase Trapper where you just really hold on to one trap. But I do see that Nia's out here in this corner, which might have been purposeful in nature, maybe to avoid the potential Starstruck play. And we do see Rag showing off that he has that Mad Grit.
Find him, Rag, find him.
Now, the biggest thing is, I will say here, I've been given this type of build many times over, and as good as Agitation Iron Grasp is, you want to be careful of that distance, because you can sometimes be a little bit overzealous. And as we saw there, Rag dropping a survivor in the end. Now, I will say this. He did, he's going back for Nia, obviously, but I did see another survivor there. Honestly, if I was him, I would think that Starstruck is activated. They're in a bit of a corner. If he can get this down in the next, 15 seconds, then maybe that drop wasn't all too bad after all.
Gens are going, though. 2 all on, though.
Yeah, that is true, but I think Rag's smart enough now about that Agitation and Iron Grasp not really working as well as he was hoping, and so opted to hook there instead. At the end of the day, that's still one hook state. It's a little bit behind what I refer to as ratio for those who do watch me over on twitch.tv/SkillSpire. You'll hear me all the time, as Killer mentioned, I'm on ratio or off a ratio. There's 2 that I really look at, and I think comp, you really want to look at it in a very similar way. As, you either want a 1-for-1 hook-to-gen ratio, or ideally a 2-for-1 hook-to-gen ratio. And Rag here right now falling a little bit behind.
That's really big for them to find an injured survivor here, especially with no gen regression. A quick down right here, maybe some value to bring the game right back for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we do see another gen pop off. Starstruck is up, though, and he is moving to the middle of the map with Agitation. That is a 44-meter tear radius. So that is taking up quite a large amount of space in the map. And, know, that would mean for the next about 45, not actually, about, sorry, another 20 seconds roughly, there will be probably at least one survivor currently exposed. And as we see 2 survivors here, I don't know, was that within 44 meters? That is the question, ain't it?
Oh.
Based on that early pallet drop, I'm getting the feeling that Ace might just be insta-downable. I was about to say, Rag was just about to step onto his own trap.
I thought he was going to do it, or kill. I thought he was going to do it. I was going to cry.
But maybe just taking the smart play and seeing that they're going for the unhook down below and kind of setting up a bit of basement trapper here. You know, could we see the good old basement trapper, but looks like they were able to pick the right door, and Rag was not able to capitalize in the end.
You see Starstruck cooldown almost back off, so if you can get down here, you can go for it again.
Yeah, absolutely, but the unfortunate thing is that we do see only 1 gen left, and I bet you that there are multiple other survivors currently on a gen. And just like that, Lori gets back up with adrenaline, and Trapper will hit her again, but Soul Guard activates and ends up extending Chase even further. Now that is a play. I'm curious if maybe they called that out and Lori was on the ground with adrenaline on purpose just to get that going. What do you think, Psycho? What's your take of that play right there?
I think it was really good, well played. They knew the person had adrenaline, and they must have probably been timing that just right. And the body blocking, no, this isn't looking good.
Yeah, I mean, we see 3 body blocks right here. There's no way for Rag to get this. Unfortunately, this league, there is no ed, so no dice. And looks like Rag will end the match with 2 hooks in the end. And with all 4 of these survivors getting out.
Little dance moves on the way out.
As just a little, you know, acknowledgement of probably a GG from one to the other. But with that being said, that is the end of the first match. And Shelby, do you have the score by chance?
Yep, it is Despair with 20 points. They got all 5 gens. Or, I'm sorry, I cannot type, apparently. It is 50 points because they got all 5 gens and 4 points, 4 survivors out. And then 8 points for How Did We Get Here?
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So that shows Despair in quite a commanding lead. And we are actually going to be switching off and having Despair invite me for the next match of Killer. I mean, definitely was unexpected to say the least. And I mean, Starstruck Trapper, not something that you see every day. You know, I see a lot of Starstruck Wraiths. I see obviously a lot of Starstruck Nurses or Spirits, but Starstruck Trapper, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, you see something new every day, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great things you can do with Starstruck. I feel like it's one of those perks. It's just like it's not overpowering, but it just makes a build and certain killers so good. I won't say who our favorite Starstruck killer is, because who knows? Might be coming up in a week or 2. But stay tuned. That's all I gotta say. I got a favorite build on Starstruck.
I look forward to it. I mean, personally, I just look at Starstruck as arguably a better Force Penance. And I mean, it goes above and beyond that, being just very, very strong. And can be used in a multitude of different ways that I think people just weren't expecting when they first looked at it. You know, when I personally first looked at Starstruck, I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty powerful, especially for, you know, killers like Nurse. But once we start seeing it used more and more, we started realizing, oh, this is kind of insane when you put it onto Nurse or a high mobility killer like Blight, like Wraith. Obviously, Nurse is just utterly insane. And so that could be a major thing that we see here, as Starstruck is not banned. And so, you know, those Starstruck plays could come into effect. And so I'm looking to see if you use that yourself.
Starstruck's definitely one of the new speed running killer perks, I'd call it.
Yes, I mean, I've seen a number of speed runs at this point, from Astarva with a Deathslinger, or Dowsy, I think with Trickster, actually. I think Dowsy got the world record now with Trickster with Starstruck. And so, I mean, if survivors just play wicked altruistic, if they're going for flashlight saves or aggressive plays on that first down, and they just don't know what's coming for them, all of a sudden you just have 4 people on the ground and the game's over. So it'll be fascinating. And As someone who's on those leaderboards, I haven't tried Starstruck just yet. I actually just got Starstruck unlocked on Trickster. Somehow it took me kind of forever. I was getting all my killer builds set up. And so now that I think I just have 2 more killers left to get their ideal builds. I have Trickster and I have Trapper. Everyone else is now completely finished, which is a sigh of relief from me. As now I can just play kind of freely, unless some people decide to give me a Mad Grip build last moment.
I wonder who that would be. Listen, I don't always give you a Mad Grip build. Sometimes you got to put some Blood Warden in there too.
True. That is fair. There's
nothing more satisfying than getting teabagged in an exit gate, only for them to run and then just realize despair. That is like one of the most greatest feelings as a killer main, I feel.
No, 100%. Blood Warden's one of those things that you never expect Blood Warden, and then the moment that you see it, you go, well, I'm dead. Same thing. I feel like a lot of players, the other type of despair that you feel when you're playing Dead by Daylight is when you're in the exit gate and you get shot by a Deathslinger just to get down. It's like, that is one of the most satisfying things as a killer main, is when you don't have Blood Warden, but you're playing Deathslinger and someone BMs in the exit gate and it's like, let's change your mind there. Let's make sure you don't do that ever again.
Or you're playing Mikey with Tombstone Piece and you don't let it be known until the last second.
Man, Tombstone Piece it's a mean piece of work. I decided to do a challenge yesterday for Hooked Up Session 4 times. I decided to use Furtive Chase on Michael Myers with Insta Tier 3 with J. Myers Memorial and the Memorial Flower. And man, after a while, I had a 0 terror radius on Tier 2. They got quite the fright a few times there, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a build that's really fun to do, but if you're on like outside maps, it's just be miserable sometimes.
I mean, you're not wrong. I was on Mother's Dwelling, so I got a 2K. Good news there, but
nice.
Would have been nice to get a little bit more pressure going, to be fair.
Yeah, you gotta use those trees.
Yeah, it's a rough map for any killer, but Michael Myers especially. Have you still been running that Billy train out of curiosity, or have you taken a back seat from Billy?
Actually, I don't play that very much Billy too much anymore. I've been trying to expand my hero pool. Twins has been my mainstay over the last 4 months for sure. As all the questions I've sent you about ruling questions about Twins should let you know. I've literally been figuring out ways to break Twins, figuring out what against, I guess, is allowed against both in league policy, also in Dead by Daylight behaviors policy. Yep. Because there's things on Twins you can do that you should just not be able to do. Yeah, and that's what's crazy about them. One of my favorite things to do, and it's evil, but I love it, is specifically when you're going up against a console player, because they have the same button bound for everything.
Yes.
You're running like top, Victor's like a spin top, or it's like you get in a situation where somebody down, you get it down or you miss, then you crawl Victor over to a downed med kit or something, and they go to try to kick you, and they just pick the item up, or they go to heal the survivor or drop the pallet instead of actually kicking you. It's hilarious. It only works against console players, but it's hilarious when it works.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. It works against PC players too. I mean, matter of fact, I've seen it happen in multiple occasions. And of course, there's always the good old the button mix-up of self-care when you're trying to open up an exit gate too, which is very similar and probably a very defeating moment in that way. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're playing against Twins can do things that other killers just can't, and you have to be very aware of your surroundings, whether that be, Victor on top of Survivor and you are trying to kick Vic but just can't, and Vic comes back and hits you instead, or something else entirely. And so Twins will be very interesting to see how that is played at like the highest level here in this league. I mean, obviously in Vigos we saw the likes of Zappies, for example, the Twins main, playing Twins pretty well. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here in Champions of Fog in addition to. And so Twins is now your main. Obviously you have Billy in your back pocket. I'm very interested to see what other killers you may have been playing around with between now and then.
There's others I've been playing with, but Twins is the only one that most people know about it, so that's why I said it.
Makes sense. And also, Shelby, just want to confirm, are we good on perks on both killer and survivor side?
We are good across the board. I checked everybody. No double perks, no double add-ons or double add-ons, double items or anything like that. We are good.
Awesome, thank you, thank you. I do see that there is an empty hand on Hammy. I might recommend that How Did We Get Here doubles checks a few things. Would hate for them not to bring in a med kit. That would be quite rough.
Trick. They got a key up their sleeve.
Yeah, doing the last minute key switch, definitely.
Yeah, the hidden key switch.
Can I just say that I truly do hate that behavior made that hatch challenge, because I see nothing but keys now for every single match. They're trying to switch it in the last moment. They bring in plunders to try and find it, just so they can get that left behind challenge out of the way.
I've been always of the belief that they've been talking about how should keys rework, how should they rework. I think they don't need to rework the key. I think what they should do is instead to nerf keys or really change how they're used. It's just make it so that when one survivor jumps in the hatch, it just spawns somewhere else closed.
That could be an idea. I mean, I personally am always for the idea that you have to only use the key. You can only use the key once, and only one survivor can get out. I actually had an idea yesterday as well, where I was thinking that if they wanted to make keys always a persistent thing that could be in a match, have it where you have to find like 3 key pieces in order to, create a key, but also still have it to where it's only a one-time use, only one survivor can get out. That'd be kind of a cool idea. That way, if the killer closes the hatch and forces ECG, and they are 1 key piece off, they could potentially go find it in a chest or something. Could be a cool idea.
Like, something like that, maybe like where the killer closes the hatch, or the last person's alive. And all the chests that have been opened just close, and in one of the chests there's going to be a key.
That'd be a thing too, yeah.
Maybe you make it so that the killer knows when a chest is opened, though. This way it just doesn't take forever. Not like as they're doing it, obviously, but once they've opened it.
Exactly. No, I think what people are asking me, like, well, how would they collect it? And I was thinking, it could be like taped to the top of the chest or something. So you have to open up 3 chests, find 3 key pieces, that generates a key, and now you have that in hand instead.
Well, there is a lot of craftable item systems coming into the game with that craftable flash grenade, maybe. So maybe,
True.
Behavior tends to try to test ideas in small pieces with things like that. So.
Well, as I said last time on the stream, I mentioned that I still think that the reason why they tested out the gnome and that smash animation from killers is because killers are going to be able to smash boon totems and basically disable whatever effect that gives survivors. So I definitely agree with you. Behavior likes to sneak in some things that they're testing. That way they can kind of check it out and be like, does this make sense? Does this animation work? Do people like this idea? Because another thing was that the gnomes always spawned in potential totem spots as well, which is a very big thing. I think for the most part it did. Sometimes I did see some strange spawn locations, but I think for the most part they always spawn near totems.
Oh, did not know that part.
But with that being said, it looks like we are about to jump into our next match. We now have Despair killing. Very curious to see what killer they bring. As we did mention before, it'll be interesting to see if they bring a top 8 killer, if they choose someone kind of random. Obviously, we saw How Do We Get Here not burn a top 8. Instead, they brought in Trapper with Starstruck, which still pretty surprised about that. Was entertaining to see, and very interested to see if we do see Starstruck again in the future.
Right. Yeah, I think you got a decent lead here. You probably don't bring out your strongest killers, but you probably bring out a strong A here in the hopes that you put up a really good game. And if you put a really good game, then you could bring out a weak killer as a throwaway in the third one if you want to try.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. That is not a bad strategy, especially when you look at the teams that are in COTF. There's a ton of well-known teams, and because of that, it can be something a bit daunting on choosing, okay, what killer do I choose for what team? And I've talked to some teams, and they have specifically chosen killers for specific matches. But we have jumped right on in.
I'm thinking Wraith here or something like that.
No, it is a Billy. Look at this. Psycho, it's your old friend.
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, this is going to be quite exciting indeed. And so, honestly, we do see Corrupted Invention, Bamboozle, Ruin, and Pop. I mean, that is the build that I use on my Billy and Bubba, so I respect it. It is a very good build, and does look like they might have been trying to wait out Corrupted Invention, but looks like Rag did get spotted here, and we are going to be on our first chase quite soon. But Ruin does get taken out. So that is some pretty good pressure to start off with, but unfortunately Rag was not able to make it to that pallet, and going for a little bit of a slide there.
So we got a slip and slide underneath the pallet there. It's a water rack?
Yeah, I've seen some strange animations recently. I had one yesterday with Ania jumping for joy, quite literally. Never knew that Crash could jump until that game. But man, we are seeing some really good Billy play here by Reeks. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I am dyslexic as hell, and unfortunately that name kind of skips me up a little bit. But still, some amazing Billy play here. Being really on point with these chainsaws. I mean, using it both as traversal in addition to just that insta-down, which, personally, I still look at Billy as a M1 killer with an insta-down, but so far we haven't seen a single M1 in play thus far.
That is the big difference between Leatherface and the Hillbilly, like you said. That's the same position I've always believed. That Billy is a M1 with an insta-down, and Leatherface is a insta-down killer with an M1.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how you play it, honestly, but we already see 3 hooks here quite early on, and they're making a smart move here to hook quite close together, ensuring that if they really want to, they can either camp this out or just zone out the survivors and ensure that they're not able to really apply any pressure. I respect the idea of gens before friends here. We do see Giraffe using Deliverance to get off a hook. I think that was quite a smart play. Hopefully they're able to get the handy in time, though, and they do. Nicely done. I mean, they waited as long as possible before using that Deliverance, and I think that was pretty smart on their part. But will it really matter much in the long run? That is the question. Wow!
Oh my! He's just showing off now. He's just showing off now.
Those were reverse freaking chainsaw downs. Very nicely done. I mean, this shows me right here that this person, much like you, is a fellow Billy main, and they know what the hell they're doing for sure. We're now in a bit of a pickle here, to say the least, where we see... Wow! I was not expecting that. I realized that they had the low pro chains, but to get that down on top of which, that was just something else. Quite impressive display here by Billy.
That was incredible.
So, what do you think, Psycho? Do they pass the bill of the Billy main, do you think?
They got some things to work on, but you know, with time, I think you could, do real good in a competitive setting with Hillbilly, if you ask me.
I could definitely see that, and it looked like that's very purposeful on that pallet breaking down. They wanted to get that pallet out of the way. I forget, those are beast scratches, right, that green add-on? You'd probably know better than I. What does that do? Is that the one when they get down, the cooldowns faster?
No, that's actually Demon Breathing. The one you go faster.
Gotcha.
He was really good for, like, you come around a corner, stuff like that, you get the window and drop faster.
That makes sense. I mean, they're playing a beautiful, beautiful match here. We have seen one gen pop off too. Maybe they kind of realize the situation that they're in and just trying to stop the bleed a little bit, try and make up some points here before going for some unhooks. Either that or maybe even trying to get the, exit gate, or not exit gate, but hatch spawn. That way you could ideally get one person out, but unfortunately it looks like Billy is going to be in chase. But let's take a quick peek at Rag and see if Unbreakable's in play. Unfortunately, not. So maybe that wasn't exactly the best move that they could have made at that point in time, since Billy is very much on the tail of a Megalol here, the Meg.
That boy is going.
Yeah, this looks pretty much like a shut and close case, as Billy only needs to go for this down here. No Unbreakable on either survivor, and there we have it. That will be third hook on a Megalol, and all Billy needs to do now is find Rag in a timely manner. and hope that RNG does not favor the survivors here.
Watch for ag vision. Oh, he's right there. Oh, he might go the other way.
Yeah, looks like Billy has gone the other way, may have lost Rag entirely, or maybe looking for Hatch first. I mean, there's no adrenaline on Rag here.
Any Hatchers in chat? Pray for Hatch, chat.
Let's see. And Billy has found it. Wow, that RNG is unfortunate. No adrenaline on Rag, but keep in mind, a bleed out does mean no points for Billy here. Now, if the entity gets them, that's another story entirely. But, you know, I think that would be Billy's worst case scenario here, is Rag just kind of escapes and hides out in this back corner.
Yeah, I think Rag was banking on him probably closing the hatch to find a hide.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Realistically speaking, Billy could have been afraid of Hatch just spawning really close, though we do see Billy out in the distance there. If I was Billy, I would check those corners, and Billy's doing just that, kind of looking around. Did he see him is the question, and it looks like he did. Well, guess we don't have to worry about the ECG and or bleed out here, or Billy is going to get that 4K in the end. Very impressive display of Billy's powers here. You know, really great job, in my opinion, of utilizing those first chainsaw downs. Really good utilization of the low pro chains. I mean, overall, just an amazing match. And shows that they spent quite a lot of time there. So, what are your thoughts there, Psycho?
I feel like when we get here, played tremendously, like, poor or made a lot of mistakes. I just feel like that Billy just had tons of pressure. He didn't miss saws really at all. He hit a lot of great saws. The low pro chain caught him out once they started dropping the pallets early, unfortunately. That was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, I don't think that they could have done anything different there. And just like I said, was a masterful showing of how to use Hillbilly. And I'll definitely have to, you know, take a look at that VOD again and, you know, try and see if I can pick up any plays, because I'm still learning Billy myself. I still need to learn on some of those tighter loops of how to get those type of downs. My mind games are kind of weaker in that regard. They're better with the M1s than M2s, because I feel like most survivors are able to kind of listen in and get a sense for where Billy's going. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it showed that he was able to make that work, and it was quite the impressive display. And I believe, Shelby, correct me if I'm wrong, that is another 8 points for how did we... not 8 points, sorry. How many points was that for how to get here and Despair there in the end?
It was 5 because they had 2 gens, and then Despair had 9 hooks and 3 progressions, so it was 47 for them.
Fair enough. I mean, like I said, that is a amazing display, and that does extend that gap just a little bit further for Despair. I mean, realistically speaking here, unless How Do We Get Here is able to just get a 4-person out with very few downs, I don't know if How Do We Get Here will be able to make it back in the end.
That's really tough for them. Back on the Billy thing really quick, one tip I could give anybody that's trying to learn Billy, and it's the best habit to start getting into, is when you're going through those back revs or you're coming up on somebody, look down. Stare at the survivor's feet and legs, and you'll get duped a lot less. That is the best tip I can give anybody.
No, absolutely. I've actually taken that that same thought process to Demogorgon, actually. To where if those shreds, because I found that some survivors are a little bit wily at times. They'll kind of go back and forth and try and get that 360. And so I've started to actually look at their feet in that same way to ensure that exact same type of play.
Yeah, it's a lot more reliable.
Exactly. And Shelby, if you could just convey to Despair real quick that they are killing again, if I'm not mistaken, since it does go, you know, kill, survive, kill. And since How Do We Get Here did kill first, I do believe that Despair will be killing again, but this time on Torment Creek.
That is correct.
So I do see a few members of Despair here, so they might have gotten a wee bit confused. Actually get some members of How Do We Get Here real quick as well, and we'll just clear that up. I do appreciate it, Shelby. And so, if that being said, okay, so we saw Billy. Now, in your opinion, do you think that Billy is a top 8 killer? You know, normally when I think top 8, I'm thinking like the S tier. You know, the very well known 3: the Nurse, the Spirit, the Blight, and then a lot of the A tier. But I personally put Billy back into B tier, even if Bubba, the Chainsaw Bros, back there and below the top 8.
Sadly, in the year 2021, he is definitely not a top 8 killer. If you had asked me this question maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, Hillbilly not only would have been top 8, you could have argued he was the best behind Nurse for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, Space Billy was a thing.
Rest in peace, Space Billy.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some really cool spots that Billy can get to. I saw someone jumping onto the car pile in Gas 7 recently. I'm like, how did you manage to find that again?
I haven't done it before, but I've seen as a way to do it on the Gideon Meat Plant. If you chainsaw, you know how they have the stairs that go down in the middle?
Yep.
There's some of the staircases that I don't know exactly what it is that does it, but if you hit it right going down, you hit something, and you can actually ramp yourself up and go like across to the other side of the map.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what that. I saw somebody do it in a video, but I didn't know. Like, I was from the survivor's perspective, so I had no idea what the Billy was doing to make it happen.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to look into that. I mean, Billy still is full of tricks and surprises, to say the least. Also, Shelby, if you could do me a quick favor and just communicate to Despair that they'll have to reset the lobby. It looks like we're having a bit of a lobby bug issue. Might also require a game reset if it does persist. You know, DBD being DBD. Thankfully, in the most recent update, there hasn't been many bugs, but there are always still a few here and there that survive by some way, shape, or form.
Everybody, send your best wishes. We got the new chapter update coming soon. Hopefully, there won't be anything crazy.
I mean, I have to give credit to behavior. In the PTB, there's only one major bug that I saw, which was I think Nemesis was able to hit through lockers, very similar to when Victor was able to do the same thing when they were initially released. So I wonder if that's like just a PTB issue and not like a general Nemesis issue. So hopefully that is not something that goes live. Besides that, still...
I was kind of hoping that it wasn't a bug and that it was a new feature, you know?
I mean, to be fair, I actually kind of like the fact that Victor could hit through lockers in the PTB, but I do like the fact that he can, you know, slow you down by grabbing you into there.
Oh, yeah. I think it's in a good place now with what he does and how he does it with the blocking. I feel like it allows for Survivor counterplay without being ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Twins is still pretty good. I actually put them in A tier. They're at the top of A tier right now, in my opinion. With Hag not too far behind, because they are one of the 2 macro killers that are able to just take such control of the map that most survivors just aren't able to do thing on an average skill level. Once you move up to comp, that's an entirely different story. Comp, I feel like it's a lot more manageable, of course, as you're able to communicate and pair up and ensure that at no point in time is Victor really going to be able to get any value. But obviously not always the case in your average game of Dead by Daylight.
For sure. Twins are one of those killers like that. I feel like with the recent changes, it makes it a little bit more forgiving for survivors, for them to put the kicks with how long they've extended the stuns to be. That's the one thing I don't like about playing Twins is you spend a lot of time just staring at a character going, for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you, based on this most recent update to Twins, what your thoughts were on that. And I think, if you think that they nerfed Twins in the wrong way. In my opinion, they did, because they should punish misses and not punish hits. Because you shouldn't punish good gameplay.
I feel like, honestly, if you get a hit, there should be almost very minimal stun. Very minimal. Because you're rewarding good hits.
Exactly.
But I think the fact they extended the stun for misses is actually a good change, because I feel like if you missed, you should get punished for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I don't get why they had to do it just for stuns in general. They couldn't just do it for misses. I feel like that's a big...
Well, I'm pretty sure that they didn't do it in general. I think it's just for the hit. I think a miss is the same exact timing as it was before. So I don't think they actually changed the miss timer, only the hit timer.
Yeah. I meant, like they could even extend the miss timer is what I mean to say, and I wouldn't be like overwhelmingly upset as long as they lowered the hit timer.
Well, exactly. I think that if they just flipped it, I think it'd be perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way you have that shorter hit timer and then the higher miss timer, and thus you kind of get a little bit more value that way, and you reward good gameplay without, I guess punishing, players who know how to use twins, because you can no longer go for it down near another survivor without being kicked if they are being attentive. So it's very difficult.
There's definitely a lot of things they need to work on with twins. They're still sometimes can be a little wonky. When it comes to like vaulting over pallets and stuff like that, it's not always consistent. There are times when you can go for a pounce on somebody who's right in front of you, and for some reason, Victor will just seemingly fly to your to the side for no apparent reason. Like it'll be like you bounced off something that you're not even looking at. It's weird sometimes.
Yeah, he hit like a pixel out of nowhere, and all of a sudden Victor's just out into left field, and you're like, where the hell did you just go, and why?
Yep, I've had that happen a few times.
And it's definitely one of those moments that you're just like, okay, explain to me, Victor, how you went from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely need to still tweak twins just a little bit, but honestly, outside of the stun timer, I'm pretty happy where twins are now. They're still very, very strong. And like I said, at least for me, up in the A tier of killer, on your average gameplay, if we're talking about like high-end gameplay and comp, then my killer tier list kind of goes out a window real quick for the most part. S tier stays the same. Most of A tier stays the same. The twins, I feel like it's knocked down a few more notches just because of the fact that everyone's on comms, everyone knows how to play against twins. I mean, a great example of that is Dowsy's game against EMA back when they're testing MMR on the PTB. He had to wait 3 hours to go against a comp team, and Twins got zero value because they just played in players the entire time. So he just was basically an M1 killer at that point.
Didn't know that was versus EMA. I had heard about that, but I didn't know it was EMA that did that.
Yeah, it was EMA against Dowsy, and it was literally EMA was in Dowsy's chat, and Dowsy took a nap on stream, more or less, because it was taking so long. About 3 hours worth of wait time due to MMR. And finally, EMA decided, okay, let's just queue up with all four of us, and they got Dowsy, which makes sense based on MMR, unfortunately. But it's one of those situations that's where it definitely shows that they still need to tweak MMR, but I'm really hoping that they do enable it soon. I've heard potential rumors that it could be coming out in July with the update potentially, but there's nothing official, and they really haven't spoken on it at all since the last PTB and the last time they tested out MMR, which was unfortunate.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how they choose to go through the game. I know there's been lots of debates with changes to the game when it comes to that, and changes to how Survive with Friends works, debating on that, and if the killer should know if there's a Survive with Friends, and all those questions that have been going around the community lately.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But real quick, just want to confirm with Shelby, are we all good on perks and loadouts?
We are good across the board on perks and loadouts.
Perfect.
And items.
Awesome. Yeah, so that brings me to an interesting point and a very controversial topic. Is your perspective on the health of the game. Obviously, I have seen a lot of larger content creators talking about this. From the Trues of the world, from the Otofus, from the Astarvas, the Dowsies, and honestly, I have my own thoughts and said as much on stream. Personally, I truly agree that majority of the issues with the game as we speak are actually with matchmaking, which is a very much what Otofu had mentioned, where if the matchmaking was better and we're matching together people of our same skill level, there wouldn't feel like there was as much of a skill disparity, even though, as we know from a comp standpoint, survivors definitely are much more stronger than killers if we're looking at it at a holistic picture just based on the amount of pressure they're able to supply on a gens in an ideal scenario.
In addition to the matchmaking, I think the other biggest thing they got to take a look at is the spawns, because there are times where survivors spawn in their totem locations, and then before you even get to where the survivors are, they're popping a gen, doing your hex totem. Like, you just have nothing you can do about it. And I feel like that's one of the other major things when you look at it as far as in the game. And then you try to bring up the solo queue communities play up. They don't need to downgrade what Survivor friends and competitive players can do. They need to upgrade what your basic solo queue player can do so that they can move around Survivor play how they like power based on that. Because the smaller range you have in a skill gap, the better. But you don't want to lower the high end. You just want to bring up the bottom end because then you can move everything at once. That's what Dalcy's video did a real good, I feel like, interpretation of how you would want to do it. I liked his opinion on that.
No, 100%, and there's many different ways of looking at it. The biggest thing is, I think, as we all can, admit, as we're all here watching competitive daylight, we want the health of the game to get better. But with that being said, we are about to jump into our next match, this time on Torment Creek. So let's take a look and see what killer we see today. Honestly, Despair has a very, very large lead. Realistically speaking, unless they completely throw this match, there's not much of a way for them to lose this. So I'm very curious to see if they bring in Trapper, if they bring in Trickster, someone that I would consider an E-tier killer. And let's take a look. And it is Trickster.
Interesting.
I mean, on Torment Creek, there's a lot of open area, though there are a lot of these, tighter tiles that'll make it very difficult for a 110 M1 killer to really gain a lot of pressure. Though he is able to identify a few different survivors very early on in his corrupted gens. We'll probably try and take advantage of this. You see Trick Blades as well as that USB. The USB, honestly, being personally, in my opinion, one of the best add-ons that Trickster can use, as that is going to reduce the amount of hits that you need by 1. And we do see Handy pulling off an interesting move here, trying to body block Draft here. Will it benefit them?
Oh,
doesn't look like it.
Yeah, that's one cardinal mistake you can't do against Trickster. You do not run into the middle of open areas against Trickster. That is a down waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Torment Creek is a great option here. I mean, personally, I think Ron Field's even better, as that's even more open. But, Torment Creek or any of the Colvin Farms now are just very, very open in the middle areas. Some of them have some of those tighter loops that Trickster kind of struggles around. But for the most part, it looks like Trickster's doing quite fine here and does find another survivor out in the open around this tight loop. But with no real pallets in the area, it's going to be kind of difficult to capitalize. We do see that he's finally run out, and we'll have to drop chase in favor of reloading. That or pressuring the unhook, which does seem to potentially be the case, as we do see Jake coming in for a potential unhook, but will get grabbed. It was a valiant effort, but unfortunately did not work out. Yep, and now the question, of course, is did anyone else come back for Giraffe before they go into second stage? But from the looks of things, they're going to get pushed in, and unfortunately that will be a early second hook state for these survivors, which, if Trickster really wants to capitalize off that, could kill off Giraffe at any moment now once a unhook occurs. And based on that, looks like they did prioritize Jake being unhooked to avoid that second stage, but unfortunately Trickster is on his way back to that unhook as we speak, and we see Jake going to take another down, no DS will be in hand, and yeah, looks like Giraffe will probably go down again thereafter. I don't think Simpson really saves you too much here. Hey, there we go. Well, that will extend the chase a little bit, but they need to play around these tiles a little bit better to try and extend chase just a wee bit more, so that way they can potentially avoid getting rehooked here, but Trickster does drop off and instead goes for Jake. So, what are your thoughts on Trickster? I feel like Trickster is all over the place as far as tiering is concerned. Some people put him in like B tier. I myself personally put him into E tier just because I feel he's very map dependent. What are your thoughts on Trickster and where he's at right now?
I've only ever actually played him once. I've been trying to avoid him from what I've heard, but when I've watched people play him, I feel like in the right hands he can do some damage. I feel, in most cases, personally, in my opinion, that just Death Slinger hunters just do what he does better. but I feel like in certain maps, like this one, against the team that's not abusing the tight loops so much, it can be really good.
No, absolutely. I mean, there are times where Trickster feels very, very powerful and is able to get those quick and, consecutive downs. But it's those moments where you get, like, certain maps where Trickster just isn't really able to capitalize as much because of tighter, taller loops, where he's not able to see over them or throw knives over them. And due to that, it really is punishing for that Trickster player. And that's the only reason why I put him in E. If I were to put him on the ideal map against an average team with his add-ons, and I'd say he probably is B tier after all. But beside that, I think that, he definitely suffers from a lot of what Trapper suffers from, which is map dependency. And I also, can I just mention real quick? We saw Trapper earlier. Still so surprised that Behavior still has not done Trapper any justice about buffing his kit at all. No love for the OG, apparently.
Yeah, because I feel like Trapper's one of those killers, though, that is a, how you would say, new player stomper of a killer. For sure, you could put them in that category. I feel like a lot of people that are new to the game will fall for traps a lot easier.
Oh, 110%. I mean,
I think that's part of why.
I remember when I switched over from Xbox to PC, and I fully used Trapper because I went from, the first killer release to the last killer release, and get them all up to rank 40 to get their unlockable perks. And when I played Trapper at that point in time, I was able to put traps in the middle of a pallet, and they would fall for it without issue. Where once I got up to, the green and purple ranks, of course, then people were a little bit more attentive about what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I gotta see. I have a clip on my YouTube a long time ago that I got back into playing console for a day, and I had regressed all the way because I hadn't played in years on console.
Yep.
And I played a trap game, got somebody hooked on the hill, put a bunch of traps around the hill, and then literally within 15 seconds, 3 people stuffed in the traps right around the hill trying to go for 2.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds par for the course. Looks like Trickster here looking out for a potential flashlight or firecracker save. I respect it. I mean, it's a smart play, though I do feel like these survivors are in such a position that they probably won't be trying to pressure that all too much. Might be focusing on Jen instead, once again trying to stop the bleeding, at least sure up their point total as much as possible. But it's definitely going to be a very tough, if not impossible game to come back from at this point in time. And due to that fact, I don't know. I don't know what the right move is for these survivors. Maybe go for hatch play? Like, if you were in the situation, what would you do as a survivor?
You just need to maximize your gen pressure. You need probably a split. You need to get multiple gens done at once rather than doubling up on anything. At this point, you're just trying to get as many gens done as possible. I feel like that's the best way to do it. You get one person take a chase, you have 2 on 2 different gens. They're split, hopefully, and then you get 2 gens popping, you're down to 1, and then maybe you can make something happen.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I definitely think that is the smart play. Obviously, Trickster being kind of keen on that idea and checking gens as he's in chase with this Meg. And, I mean, realistically speaking, I think the best case scenario is to get 1 more gen. If this Meg or whoever is next who dies on hook dies, at least then, the hatch does spawn, you can hunt that down, and ideally from there, at least get 1 person out for some additional points if worse comes to worse. Though maybe best case scenario, of course, being them able to get all 3 gens, but I think that might be asking a lot at this point in time if 1 person already dead and out of the match.
And you hear one of the gens being worked on right there. Ruin's still up, so there will be no pop going here.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, at this point in time for the Trickster, I don't think he's really too worried about that gen regression from Pop versus Ruin. As we do see that Undying is now gone. But the major thing here is that he's just trying to get this next survivor down as soon as possible before we do see another gen pop and hatch 2 spawn for a potential out. Looks like we will see that down. I feel like maybe there's an attempt at a reverse Dead Hard there, but might have ended up exhausted on the ground instead. And we do see Dead Hard in hand, so getting a feeling that was the attempt.
We do see his teammate off in the distance working on a gen, it looks like. Rag got the top one.
Yep,
Gonna
that
be
is
found,
another
though.
gen, but will that really do much here? Obviously, Trickster's waiting for some form of notification on trying to figure out where this survivor was. And now Trickster, all they have to do is slug out Rag, ideally, and then go for Hammy, who is still on the ground where they were left.
Yeah, but we'll see what could happen. If they manage to find the hatch before they go down, something could work here.
It's true, it's true. Hammy could crawl now and try and attempt to find it. It does not appear to be on that hill, but Rag is down as he speaks and will be more likely not going into the basement. Another unfortunate thing is Rag is on first hook, which means that hatch will not open right away. So Hammy will have to wait until Rag suicides there.
For a second there, when the Trickster was going down the basement steps, since his pants were the same color, I thought he was missing his bottom torso for a second. I was so confused for a second. I thought he was floating.
Oh, and fortunately, Trickster does find Hammy and throwing some knives to signal as much, and that there will be a 4K for the Trickster. I mean, a very good display of Trickster, you know, made sure that they weren't committing to some of those tighter tiles, and looks like they incidentally also found the hatch all the while. That was surely unexpected, and throwing some knives as celebration. Alright, well that being said, what is our score as we leave the third trial out of curiosity, Shelby?
That one was How Did We Get Here with 9 points and Despair with 51. They had a few progressions. So we have a total of Despair of 148 and How Did We Get Here with 22.
Alright, well it does seem that this match is pretty much said and done. But we are going to be seeing one more match of Killer from How Did We Get Here, as they will have to choose what Killer they want to play. Of course, with this league's rules, you only have the ability to use each Killer once, so hopefully they do choose someone that they feel they can do away with and not feel too upset about losing. So I'll wait for them to invite me. But in the meanwhile, you know, so in your opinion, with Trickster, as we just saw there, obviously very strong in those wide open maps, able to down people very quickly in succession if used appropriately. You know, if you were to buff Trickster in any way, how would you buff Trickster? Or do you think Trickster even needs a buff?
That's a hard thing. Buff per se, no. I just feel like you need to make his power more reliable and rewarding to use. That's what I feel like, because arguably a lot of the time you're better just swinging, and unless you're on certain maps in certain situations, and I feel like that's a big disappointment. You know, I feel like a killer whose power isn't used very often, it's just to me quite boring.
Yeah.
To play. You know, and I feel like Trickster, when it works, when you get to use your power, it feels great. But there's a lot of times where I feel like sometimes people are forced to use their power just because they want to use their power when it might not even be the best thing to do.
Yeah, that is a fair point, and something that I definitely have said before is that it really is rough for Tricksters not being able to, like, trigger a main event, kind of like a tier 3 Michael Myers, like you 99 it, or you get it to 100% and be able to activate when you want, and kind of be able to force to use it in the moment, and sometimes it kind of pops off when you're looping Shack. It's like, well, why in the hell would I want to use it here of all places? You know, they're going to be able to escape my knives pretty quickly. So it's a rough situation to be in, and so that'd be one major buff that I personally would give, just main event being triggerable rather than, or activatable rather than like randomly triggered due to progression of the main event.
Another big thing I feel like with him is like the fact that survivors just their moves decayed over time. I just feel like that's not very good in my opinion. You know, you don't become unsick automatically as the plague. You have to go out and find a pool to get rid of it. And even if you do get rid of it, you give the plague something back. So maybe they could do something like, you know, they have the animation where you have to stand still and pull the blades out to be able to get the meter to go down. And maybe you even can make it, let's say if like a survivor pulls a blade out, for each blade that gets pulled out, the Trickster automatically reloads a certain amount of blades or something kind of crazy like that, where it would just give it gives the counterplay and play back to both sides, like
And
how it is with the plague.
I honestly, I think I'm not sure if it was you who mentioned that to me or someone else, but I've heard that a few times thrown around. And honestly, I really like the idea of the blades being pulled out of the survivor. Make it almost like a mending action might take, 2 seconds per knife, for example. So make it pretty short, but make it so that the survivors have to take the time to take out those knives, and almost plays like a Legion in a way, where the nice thing about Legion, the reason why, like, for example, I play Thanatophobia and Ruin in addition to that, is the fact that if I stab all 4 survivors and they're working on 3 different gens, well, I have to spend 8 seconds to mend, which is 8 seconds the time off their gens. And then, if they want to heal afterwards, that's even more time. And if they don't, then Thanatophobia is adding 4 seconds per injured survivor. So, like, there's definitely a lot of ways to work around that type of concept, and Mending's a really good example of that. And so if they were to take a note from Mending and apply a similar concept to Trickster, I think that'd be really, really, a really, really good touch to where they'd potentially be able to use that, and Trickster would have a little bit more counterplay, and Trickster would be able to, utilize his power more strategically and go, okay, well, I 99 that survivor. I'm going to leave them to pull out knives. That's going to take 8 seconds, which means they're going to be off their gen, or, what have you. And kind of use it in that fashion. I think it'd be kind of fascinating.
And I even think that you take it even further. I know, like, you give the plague a bonus, you corrupt purge for cleansing as the punishment for forcing yourself to cleanse. Just gives something simple, like just give the trickster a couple blades back for every blade you have to pull out. That wouldn't be too crazy, and I feel like it would give both sides control over the situation a little bit, and rewards for whichever way you want to play it. Realistically, you either risk getting downed easier because you're going to leave up the blade meter how it is, or you're going to cleanse and reload the killer and waste time. A lot of killers are like that. They have certain things in their kit that can cause survivors to waste time, which you have that for Legion, you have that for how his build works, you have that for Pig, which works in a completely unorthodox way. I kind of like that. That's a little bit different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's passive gen slowdown, and it's a really big factor in playing those specific type of killers. The Legions, the Plagues, the Pigs. And there's even counterplay in that same sense, to where if they keep it to where Trickster, when you hit them, they lose some knives out of them, theoretically. They lose that laceration value. Then almost works similar to Ghostface, to where if you know that you're, 99 on knives, you might want to take a hit instead. It moves you down a, hell state, but also takes knives out of you as well. So it kind of could be an interesting way to play around that. And would make for some really interesting interactions from survivors who are knowledgeable mechanically and understanding, where they are as far as their laceration meter is concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of killers that have a little bit of tech like that. Like, I don't know if they fixed it yet, but like Michael, you sometimes can't stalk survivors that are directly in front of you sometimes, based on how the hitboxes work. So I've seen people know that you've a 90 tier 3, and they'll flat out just run straight into your face and try to make it so you can't pop the 3. But the killer also has their own counterplay where they could, if they're smart enough, just take a couple steps backwards and then pop it and go after them. But like that's interesting, a little unintended gameplay.
Exactly. But real quick, just want to confirm, Shelby, that perks and loadouts were confirmed.
Loadouts and perks are all good to go. Everyone is in the clear.
Perfect. We are ready, and looks like we are going to be jumping into this match momentarily. But yeah, so I think there could be a lot of ways for behavior to kind of finally tune Trickster over time, and I'm very excited with that concept in mind, that they will eventually get to that point. Obviously, we see that, with the likes of Freddy, Nurse, or any of the other killers that they've tweaked, it can take quite a while, unfortunately. But my hope is that they'll keep on reevaluating and looking at Trickster and go, okay, well, he could be tweaked this way, he could be tweaked that way. Let's try something new. And it's very obvious that behavior is interested in doing stuff like that, as we do hear about boon totems. as we hear about changes to Moris, as we hear changes about keys. It's very evident that they're not afraid of changing things ever so slightly to try and increase the health of the game. Whether or not it works as intended, that's another story completely. But at the very least, it shows that they are flexible in their thought process and not just going to, well, we made this killer, we're just going to leave him as is. You know, I played some games like that, like Evolve, which was another asymmetrical game. And Evolve really suffered because of that, so I'm very excited that Behavior at least does show some promise in that regard.
It's all a matter of time. You know, lots of things the devs and Behavior have confirmed they're going to change. It's just a matter of waiting for them to figure out what the exact change is right for the game. Look at Huntress's iridescent hatchets. While they still do what they're supposed to do, it took forever of debate back and forth and people asking for it for them to change it. Like it's been in a game for so long, and it's been a thing that's been so controversial for so long. But they eventually got to it and did something about it.
Exactly.
It's a matter of waiting for them to figure out what the right change is for the game.
Exactly. So, I mean, as we go into now the fifth, going on to the 6th year of Dead by Daylight, I'm very excited to see the direction that this game goes. But with that being said, we are jumping into our last trial of the night. I mean, as we are well aware, this is pretty much the nail in the coffin. This is the swan song of How Did We Get Here, as Aspera has a very commanding lead. But let's see what killer that How Did We Get Here does end up bringing, and how this will turn out in the end.
10th anniversary chapter, we go to Space Guild.
In the 10th anniversary chapter, we go to space, did you say?
We can go to the space. I'm calling it now. We go to space.
What is
Space
this, Call
crap.
of Duty? Alright, but we see here some survivors running around already. Builds look very similar. One survivor already on Gen, and we got a Demogorgon, Mr. Demoboy, or as my community likes to call him, Mr. Chicken Fingers, out on the prowl with some Save the Best for Last, Surge, Barbecue, and Infectious Fright. Now, I've seen a few demos of Infectious Fright. I'm always curious with that. I personally don't care for it too much on him, but the Save the Best for Last, I mean, that is a staple of Demogorgon if you are ever using him, that's for sure.
Without a doubt, as a popular one. Barbecue is also a little bit interesting to me, too.
It depends. I find a lot of Demogorgons who use their portals a lot will use Barbecue and Chili, but it takes a lot of setup in the early game. Hence why I personally don't care for it all too much. But I can only see the value if an instance that they take the time needed to set up properly. But based on how quickly they were on Survivors, I'm very doubtful that was taken into consideration here. We do see Demo on a chase, trying to get a cheeky little mind game here. Not going all too well, but does get some distance on the clock in order to get that hit. And is trying to build up some of those Save the Best for Last stacks, so we'll be closing the distance on these survivors pretty quick as long as they can keep those in hand. Well, that does find a pallet though, and we'll be working around this. I mean, if you're in Demo's, position here, what is your focus here this match? Are you just committing to chases? Are you trying for gen pressure? Obviously, there's no passive gen regression, right? So, what is your perspective here?
Well, you gotta save the best for last. So I think the most important thing you need to do is you need to build stacks. So I would be just going for a maximum amount of hits early and try to push people off with gens. Obviously, if you can get some hooks along the way, that's great. But if you can build up some best for last value without letting people die, it'll make the mid to late game a lot more manageable for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, Demo, as much as I love him, I still stick him in the C to maybe bottom B tier. He's actually a lot better now with the update. Those small little tweaks and improvements definitely went a long way. But the fact of the matter is Demo still struggles a little bit at that early game. But, over time is able to make up for that in the mid to late once you're able to really, lay on those stacks of save and start just closing gaps very quickly, as if you're on 8 stacks of save, you can just whack a survivor and shred them almost instantaneously. Very similar way that you see Death Slingers use Save the Best for Last, for sure.
And all these gens are going.
I mean, they're going up pretty quick. You see that they're trading off of gens. They're working them very efficiently. Probably maybe doubling up or using toolboxes in order to get either Prove Thyself or toolbox value. And, I mean, we see them slowly but surely just eking out value. And though 2 survivors are currently off of gens, We do see, actually, no one else on gens as we speak. I was expecting maybe one or two on some gens in the far distance, but these guys do not seem all too afraid to go on gens in front of Demogorgon's face.
As much as I like that damage there, unless he's going to go for it down here, I think you need to save the best for last value, but at this point it's getting rough.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Demo's kind of trying to figure out here, okay, what's my strategy, what's my game plan, what am I doing here? Do I go for, gen pressure and try and hold this, these 2 or 3 gens, or do I try and go for a down? And unfortunately, Demo is suffering from that indecision, as we see this chase with Lori going a little bit longer than necessary.
Unfortunately, I think the Demo is kind of mind game that tree tile there, and that's a hard tile to mind game, because Demo is not exactly a really short killer, and that is a low wall. So you can completely lock the killer once they get the entire time there. Ooh, a late whiff.
Yeah, it's very difficult for Demo. At the end of the day, your best strategy with the mind games is to, work situations like that and try and get shreds at a distance to ensure that they're not going to get that value. But unfortunately, that Meg sneaks around the corner and denies that Demo that hook. And we now see here that the last gen has been finished, and Lori now has Adrenaline. Once again, I did see chat earlier, apparently it wasn't planned with Adrenaline and Soul Guard value. I do wonder if that there was. I get a feeling that probably wasn't, but man, the timing on both of those Adrenalines was kind of insane.
Was that actually the first flashlight save in COTF stream history?
So far, to my knowledge, at least in the matches that have been streamed as premiere matches, that is the first flashlight save. Outside of that, I would have to consult my refs as well as Oliver Domo, who did host the last trial at 2 p.m. with Phantom versus Envy.
Someone needs to get somebody here.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think the Demo's trying to stop the bleeding and try and box this Claudette out and see if they're able to get at least one down and maybe kill. We do see survivors coming in. They obviously do have 3 body blocks available to them, and I think this gives them the distance that they need to just close out the match.
The convoy is here, Guilt. The convoy.
Yep, exactly. And I don't think there's any way to get around this. Meg trying to just box Demo out. Demo, though, with an insane hit there. That was really, really well done. But Demo now needs to worry about that flashlight on Meg. And unfortunately, does get it. Nicely done.
They can still get a save here, though, so you won't be risky. The gates are really, the heck is really right there. Oh no, Blind, this is gonna hurt. Oh, Gil, I can't look.
There's Ace. Oh, and unfortunately, that is the BT. I mean, they got one hook in the end. And that was a pretty good shred, too, to get that down. That was like threading the needle right there for sure. So, very nice attempt at the end there by Hammy with Demo. But that there is the nail in the coffin for how did we get here.
I'm honestly surprised the survivors that were body blocking didn't just stop in their tracks. Just to try to force the killer to let them get some distance so they can get that shred off there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tried, but I think somehow those hitboxes just worked out in Demo's favor and is just able to thread the needle. But that being said, what is our final score today, Shelby?
It is a total of 198 on Team Despair to 26 with How Did We Get Here. They got all their points for 50, and he had the one down for 4.
All right, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, some very interesting plays. Honestly, the biggest thing I want to say here is How Did We Get Here is a brand new team to comp. And, Psycho, you and I are very familiar with what that is like. Being the babies in a pool full of sharks, for lack of a better term. So, as being former members of Four Nights One Locker, at least me, and, you, Psycho, being on Four Nights One Locker still, it's a very much a learning curve. And I think over time we saw the likes of Hell Racing Depressors really flourish over time. And it just came down to practice, and kind of being thrown back into that fire time and time again. So biggest thing I want to say here is keep that in mind and, support How Did We Get Here the best you can. If you have any tips or tricks or anything that they could do better and they're receptive to that and want your feedback, definitely feel free to reach out. That was something that we got a lot in Vigo's court, and I was always happy to receive that feedback on how we could do better. So what are your thoughts there, Psycho?
Every competitive team and player starts somewhere. You don't start at the top usually. Most people don't, in any kind of game or sport or anything like that, they don't just start at the best. They work, they practice, they find ways to have fun along the way, but they do a lot of work to do it, and that's how you get better. Unfortunately, it just doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of time and effort, and the ability to take a loss and try to look at it and motivate it for yourself to be better rather than dwelling on what could have been. You just try to look forward to the future and just do the best you can. Over time, you'll learn. My team that I'm on now is a strong example of that. In the beginning, we got exclusively carried by Guildspire. We still got carried for the rest of Eagles Court, but we got better as the season went on. And there was, I remember specifically that one game versus, I think it was Hellraisers, that you brought us back on that Freddy match. It brought us in close. But then after that, we went up against their Legion, and our Survivor team played crazily good that game. And, it's just all about just keeping motivated and just working and working, and you'll improve.
Absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And so I really do implore, both how did we get here as well as other newer comp teams to just keep on trying at it and don't feel discouraged. At the end of the day, the best you can do is keep on practicing and keep on playing and just, network with your fellow teams. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to scrim with you and provide feedback where possible. But with that being said, everyone, that there is our end of round one officially. We had our remaining game at 2 p.m., and then our 6 p.m. match, for those who are not aware, was canceled. Did end up in a draw due to unforeseen circumstances. But with that being said, Psycho, if they wanted to check you out, I know you don't have too consistent of a stream schedule, but if they wanted to come say hi and support you, where would they find you?
Oh, I usually stream often on Psycho_Mantis. That's SYKO, not PSYCHO, like the regular Metal Gear character. I've been trying to get back into a regular thing, trying to play some other games here and there, but I'm mostly just going back and forth between playing on my Overwatch team and my Dead by Daylight team.
Awesome. And if you do want to catch me, you can check me out at twitch.tv/Guildspire. Would love for you to come support us both. Come say hi. Say you're from COTF. And on that note, everyone, we will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. CST. Let me check with what that match is, actually. Hold on one second.
6, that might be us.
Is that 6 p.m. tomorrow for you guys? Let's see, 6 p.m. tomorrow, I am seeing 4 Dwights, 1 Locker versus Dead on Second Hook. So very excited to see that, and I'll be seeing you. But on the other end of the screen, Psycho, on that note, guys... Exactly, I'm excited. But on that note, guys, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye!
Bye, everybody.